Okay, we'll go ahead and get started for the sake of moving along. What we're going to do tonight to kind of get things warmed up a little bit is we're going to go around the room and we're just going to really simply introduce ourselves. Some of us don't know the other individuals, and we're going to say what year we graduated, where we live at now, and our original hometown. Can you remember that? Hey, Doug, you're first.
Hey, thank you. Doug Wood, pledged in 78, graduated in 82, from Sullivan, currently in Mattoon, Illinois right now.
Excellent, thank you. Rick Story.
I pledged in 75, up in 200. I am currently living in Elk Grove Village, originally from Hoffman Estates, Illinois.
Excellent. Ron Brohammer.
Well, I pledged LEAC in 1960, I guess the spring of 1964. And am the current immediate past president of the Alumni Association. I graduated from SIU. I completed my degree requirements in 1966 and then immediately went into the Air Force and spent almost 28 years in the Air Force. From Coffeen, Illinois, about 100 miles north of Carbondale. Currently live in Lee's Summit, Missouri, the edge of Kansas City.
Thank you. Jim Miller.
Okay, also from Montgomery County, originally from Witt, pledged in the fall of 79, graduated in the spring of 83, and I moved down the road from Witt to the bigger city of Nokomis, still in Montgomery County.
There you go. Jake Rendelman. We all know you, but we're going to still make you talk to us.
Okay, well, I'm usually not on these, but I was an original LEAC, started there in 63, graduated in first time in 65 and got masters, and later on 76, born in Carbondale and live in Carterville.
Excellent, thank you. DJ.
Yeah, Tom. DJ Martin, pledged with Rick Story in the fall of 1975, graduated in spring of 79 with BS and masters in 80, and originally from Waynesville and moved back to the farm a few years ago in Waynesville. So.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Al.
Al Osterlund, I pledged in the fall of 1968. LEAC, went active in AGR in 1970 when we had our initial initiation. Originally from Antioch, Illinois, up in the northern part of the state. Moved to Indiana in 72, and I've been here ever since. Albion, Indiana, clear over on the eastern side, northeastern corner of the state, next to Michigan and Ohio.
Close to Napanee.
Yep, not far from Napanee.
Steve Wyatt.
I'm Steve Wyatt. I pledged LEAC in fall of 67, graduated in 70. Pin number 57. I was from Newton, Illinois originally. Now I live in Effingham.
Thank you, Steve. Rick Hyatt.
Thanks, Tom. Rick Hyatt, I pledged LEAC in 1967, pin number 45. I was in Watseka, was a hometown at that time, Watseka, Illinois, and currently moved, or not currently, but I moved to Pontiac in 1975 and haven't left.
Sounds good. Okay. the next person is going to, with the board's approval, is Joe Bachhold, who we are going to talk about tonight as being an assistant treasurer. Joe, will you introduce yourself? And you are welcome to expound a little bit about your background a little bit, since you're new to the group here.
Sure. Evening, guys. Joe Bachhold, PIN 649, would have pledged in the fall of 2002, graduating spring of 2006. Held several offices as an active member. Originally from the Quincy, Illinois area, bounced around a little bit after college, and now have a nice house with my wife and kids about a mile from where I grew up. So I didn't get very far.
Sounds good.
Sure. Quincy,
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Quincy, okay.
Mike Bachhold.
Hi, guys. I would have pledged in the fall of 2004. My PIN number is 688. I graduated from SIU in 2008 with a bachelor's degree and 3 minors, all in ag. Grew up shockingly with Joe there in Camp Point. Currently, I'm still living in that same house, but tonight I'm going to call this truck home. I'm currently up on the Iowa-Minnesota border right now and watching the storms roll through. So that's where I'm currently at.
Sounds good. Thanks for making an effort to dial in.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to be here.
Appreciate that. Chuck Ealer. You're on mute, Chuck.
There, is that better?
That's much better. Thank you. We like to
Okay.
hear you, Chuck.
All right. Damn phone is a whole lot smarter than I am, but I keep working with it. I pledged, I think, in 64 to LEAC, graduated in 65, PIN number 34, started graduate school in the fall of 65, got after right away. Finally got out of that bullshit and came back here to Champaign, where I was born and raised, and farmed for about 45 years. We also owned a real estate company and had interest in other things as well, wife and family right here. So, yeah, been a good ride.
Thank you, Chuck.
Very good.
Okay, the next person we're on to is Gary Apgar.
Well, all right, gentlemen, I think I came in somewhere between 99 and maybe 03, I guess, and I don't remember my PIN number. I've never really graduated, so I'm still here at SIU. I live in Murfreesboro and originally from a little town called Adelphia, New Jersey.
Sounds good. And Gary is our academic advisor. Okay, next person looks like it is Blake.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can, yes.
All right. I'm currently outside of the house on the porch watching it rain. It was about the only quiet place I could find. But I am Blake Caston. I'm PIN number 993. I would have pledged last fall semester. I'm currently a senior and I could potentially graduate this upcoming December, but I haven't really made up my mind on what I'm doing. So I might stick around for a little longer. We'll see what happens. I am the Vice Noble Ruler of Finance for the chapter here. And that's all I got.
Where are you from?
You know where Pocahontas, Missouri is?
Yes, indeed, I do.
Yep.
You know where Greenville is?
Maybe. If I looked it up, I probably would recognize it.
Just up the road.
That looks like we have everybody. Did I miss anybody?
I think Don Nepp is on.
Oh, Don Nepp, yes. Don, you're up. Don, you're on mute. Hey, Don, you're on mute.
How about now?
You are good to go. Thank you for dialing in on this. I appreciate it.
Well, I was having dinner, so it took me 7 minutes too long. So, but anyway, I'm here. I'm Don Knipp. I graduated in '66, joined the Ag Co-op in 1964. I'm from Washington, Illinois, originally. First job was working for DuQuoin Packing after I got out of college, running their cattle feedlot. And that led me to trade cattle futures in Chicago for 10 years on the Chicago Mercantile. And then after that, I was basically a commodity fund trader and crazy man. So that kind of takes care of that. Got 7 grandchildren, 4 kids, and my wife Suzanne is a oncologist. We're both retired. So we live outside of Chicago right now in North Barrington.
Sounds good. Thanks, Don, for participating. And I also wanted to thank you for your earlier email. I appreciate that. We'll talk a little bit more about that in depth in just a little while. Thank you very much. As far as my background, I pledged in fall of '77 as a row and graduated in '80. And I'm originally from Peoria, Illinois, and I live now in the St. Louis suburbs. And as a geography, I cover East Central Missouri and Southern Illinois. And it allows me to get down to Carbondale maybe a little more frequently than I need to or want to, but that's the way it works. So that's my story. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move right along here, and we've covered that portion. Is there any old business that we need to cover?
Yeah. Tom, your phone call got me thinking. You need to appoint all of the appointee positions, since this is the first board meeting since founders. Basically the treasurer, the executive secretary, the scholarship people, the advisors. I think that's about it.
Since I'm a rookie here, Rick, would you tell me how they are appointed? Is that just a statement of fact?
It's a motion from the board. You barely just got a quorum. So the board members can go ahead and make a motion to appoint those positions. I'll write them out and have a motion for it.
Would somebody put forth a motion, please?
So moved, Tom. It's
Is there
DJ.
a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Nay.
The other thing that you need to do, just as a housekeeping matter, Tom, is every year, the president comes from the board. And then you kind of reorganize like you're doing now. You need vice president. Chuck's been serving in that capacity. And if you ask him real nice, he might do it for you again. And somebody could make a motion for vice president.
Chuck, would you be willing to continue to serve?
I would.
Excellent, excellent. So then, Rick, do we do a motion for all 4 positions?
No, the secretary is technically, I guess, the last few years just fallen on me. Your prior motion appointed Jim Miller to the treasurer's position. That is an appointed position, and you've already announced Joe Bachtold to be in a backup treasurer.
Okay, that sounds good. So do we need a motion then for?
Just on Chuck, VP.
Can we have a motion, please, from the group for Chuck as VP, please?
So moved. It's DJ.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay?
Okay,
Motion
that's
carries.
your old business and your housekeeping, Tom. So thank you very much.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. With regard to new business, anybody want to bring up any new business? Because I've got about 8 or 9 bullet points to run by the group, but if there's anything from the floor that anybody needs to bring up, let's do it now.
Tom, there was a couple bills that I put with my report. That had to do with bills from National. One was for D&O insurance. And let's see. Yeah. D&O insurance, directors and officers insurance premium of $500. The other one, the $460 due National, was for the fidelity bond of $60 and $400 for the 2023 convention alumni portion of the convention fees. So we have a total of $960 due to AGR National Office.
Okay, all right. Jim, since you've been giving us a little bit of the treasurer's report, why don't you finish it out with the other reports?
Does anyone have any questions on any of the other reports? Basically, it's our balances as of yesterday, I believe, as of the 19th.
Jim, about 10 minutes ago, I got our SIU fund updated. If you see on there, the Foundation Scholarship Fund, the available, we took $1,000 for these last 2 scholarships. So that's down to $547.25. And then the one day of giving, plus another 500 that was donated in December. So we have about 2611 to add on at the time you take out the 6%. We had 2778 minus 6%. So that would give us a total in the escrow account of 26,847.52. Now there's one other donation that's not in there, and Susan couldn't find how much that was. So we'll get you totals as soon as I can get them back from Susan.
That was an update from Day of Giving, then you said?
Yes, and there was 500 that came in last December.
Okay.
We should get another update. They should pay the escrow account another July 1, and I don't know how much that's going to be. So we get an update with new totals in July 1.
Steve, this is Jake.
Yeah.
Question, how much was given on the day of sharing?
20 today of sharing 2278, plus Susan said there was one more, and I don't she didn't know how much that was. She knew who it was, but she didn't know how much it was, and she didn't think that the total was in there. So right now it's 2278 on that one day.
So, okay, what was totally given to the College of Ag, Life and Physical Science on the day of sharing? Do you have
I
it?
don't know. I haven't got that.
Okay, I haven't either, so just clear, okay.
Hey, Ron, do you have anything on the AGR Foundation dollar amount?
No, that's, I don't do that anymore. That's been turned over to,
Yeah, I do that.
Okay,
And yeah, no, I do not have. I did not ask, to be honest with you. So
Okay.
I can get that total, though. I'm hopeful.
okay.
should be somewhere in the neighborhood of, about 52,000, I think. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Should be, yeah.
All right, sounds good. Jim, anything more you want to add about the financials?
Oh, the only thing is, I'll have a report later on for the summer meeting. There are two different deposits that were paid for summer meeting. 400 to the Crown Plaza and 200 to Dannenberger Winery. But in new business, I'll go over a little bit of information on that. And then I've got, after this meeting's over, we've got another meeting regarding summer meeting. So,
Okay, that sounds good. So let's make sure before we close out today that you kind of give everybody a nice report on the summer meeting plans.
okay.
We'll circle back to you in a minute.
Sounds good, Tom. Thank you.
Hey, Tom,
Yes, sir.
ask for a motion to approve the treasurer's report and include paying those two bills.
Motion requested from the board for the payment of those two bills and approval of treasurer's report today, April 20th.
Tom, I so move that.
You're slam dunk tonight, DJ. I appreciate
That's
you.
my job.
Thank you. Thank you. In addition, I'll be requesting from you some critical thinking this year. So keep up the momentum, will you please? And is there a second?
Hey, I'll second that.
There you go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Thanks,
Motion
Tom.
carries.
Tom, the only thing I might add is for Rick Hyatt, whenever you can get me your info on the cost for the raffle, I'll get you a check for that.
Okay,
All right, that's it.
Okay, that sounds good. Blake, are you still on?
Oh, there we go.
Yes, I'm still here.
Hey, Blake, can you kind of give kind of a call out to the board on where things stand? Good things happening, anything bad happening, anything that we need to know about? I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I wish I could have gotten a better report together for you, but I can tell you what I do know. I did just send another rent check. I believe it would be for February, so we are still catching up on our rent here at the house. We're still doing our gun raffle for St. Jude. So if anybody hasn't purchased tickets that would like to, we are still collecting for that. I think until May 6th. I think our drawing's on the 7th. For the delinquent accounts that me and you've been talking about, Tom.
Yes.
I'm still working on getting those together. I did hear from my boss. We do send a lot of people to collections at my place of employment. She said that we would give them 30 days. And then after 30 days, if there's no payment received, we would send them to collections. I'm really not sure how the process really works. So I just need help doing all of that. And then if we could get even half of that back to us, that would help us paying back our national dues.
Yeah, to expound or segue off of what Blake has said, we've uncovered that there's about $20,000 owed the chapter from past delinquents, and it ranges from smaller amounts, 1,000, and I think there's one individual out there that owes like 6,000 or 7,000, and so Blake and I have made a pact here that we're going to go after them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I wanted you to be aware that there's some money owed to the national for dues and fees. And the idea is if we could get half of that amount, we would earmark it towards paying off that debt.
Perfectly said.
Anything else, Blake? And I was going to ask you if Wyatt will be on the call tonight at all.
He's not going to be on tonight. He said he's got a pack for his vacation this weekend and he doesn't have any time. So
Okay, thank you.
You got me.
We'll
Hey,
take
Blake,
it.
Blake, I did receive that check today in the mail, so thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. I think I sent that Sunday or Monday. I can't remember, but yeah,
Yeah.
I was sending that. So
I got it today. It'll be in the bank tomorrow.
perfect. Good deal.
Thank you.
Of course.
That sounds good. Let me see here. Okay. I've got some bullet points to go through. Is there anything that I have missed that anybody wants to talk about or anything that I might have missed?
The only thing is, Tom, Blake and I were talking about at Founders, there was 3 people and they were new alumni who I have no idea who they were or who I got a list, but I don't have it here in front of me, that were supposed to pay us by check. And I didn't receive it and Blake didn't receive it. And they weren't actives, but they were new alumni. So maybe Joe and I can get some of this stuff together too and figure out how to do that, because when I'm at the Founders, I know all of us old guys, I should say, and I make sure that but some of these guys, I don't know if they're actives. I don't know if they're, and I know Blake did a lot as far as we collected quite a bit that night, but there's about 3 people. I'll get the list together on that. And him and I have been talking about that, but that's something that seems like to me at Founders that it kind of gets dropped or something like that. As far as I got the PayPal stuff taken care of and got it transferred to me through Tadge's account. I think Joe's going to help out on that too. So,
Jim, I think one of the things we can do going forward is when people go through the food line, I think if we can get one person positioned to do a checklist off of everybody, maybe we can nip this one in the bud.
okay.
I'd be willing to do that so that we don't have the vagaries of not knowing who or did not pay. So we can talk about that off record, but
Right.
that's kind of one of my ideas of how we can button this down a little better.
Sounds good, Tom. Thanks.
Okay. So having said, I think everything covered, and I really just want to encourage everybody in a free form to break in, and if you have something to say it. But there's been a lot of talk, and I have sent some notes out about a potential purchase of the Delta Zeta house, and I'm going to just start out with a little bit of bad news for everybody. I got word from the real estate company this morning that somebody who was a dark horse buyer who was not expected to even participate came in and put a contract down on the Delta Zeta house today. And unless that doesn't close, we're effectively out of that possibility.
Hey, well, Tom, can I ask 2 or 3 questions at this point? I've been a commercial real estate broker for a long, long time. Tell me how you were going to finance $650,000.
What I was envisioning, and I needed people on this board smarter than I am, but what my vision was to find, and I had already had some commitments from some people of 10 to 20,000 apiece who were willing to fund the down payment. The Delta Zeta house was supposed to be under lease under 2 more years. So the idea was to dovetail a fundraising campaign along with some seed money for a down payment and raise the money over 2 years. So in 2025, when the Delta Zetas were out of the house, we could effectively move in. And the idea was to raise between $1 million and $1.25 million, but that's an unproven quantity, I have to admit. But the idea was to use seed money in the beginning to secure a down payment, and then have the Delta Zetas pay us rent, help us cash flow it, and then use a professional fundraising organization to help us raise the money and go from there.
Well, having had about 50 years experience with Beta Alpha, my suggestion is before you put down any commitment of any kind, have 30 or 40% of the total on hand in cash in your hand. I'm going to tell you, and I won't do it tonight because it would take too long. Having had lots of experience with Beta Alpha, and by the way, I don't know how nice to say, a nice way to say this, but their money handling skills is about sophomoric at best. They can come up with a lot of money and somehow it just disappears. I'm saying before you sign any contract, 3 or 4 things are going to happen. Number one, who's going to buy it? The Beta Alpha Corporation. And if that's the case, and you go to the bank and you say, hey, I need to borrow 400,000, 500,000, whatever you're going to borrow to close it, they'll take that corporation, but they're also going to ask for several people to sign as well, personally and professionally. Now, at that point, maybe you could go home and tell your wife, I just signed a $500,000 note. And if nobody else pays, you and I are going to pay. That's the way it works in the real world. Now, we went through that South 51 debacle, and I went out and beat the doors on several people to ask to help fund that. And I got nothing, zero, nada. So I funded it. Now, now I have to say correctly that Rich Denhart also came on board a little later. And to get that building ready for the census, we put in another $8,000 or $9,000 or $10,000. Now, there was not one person I contacted that gave me as much as $1. So when you have this dream, which is wonderful, when you go out there, you need real hard cash. And so if you're thinking about it, you should start yesterday. Okay. Now, I would be more than happy to sit down in a private group and expound on this, but you need real money and not just a handshake and say, oh yeah, I'll do that, because they won't do it. You need real money. Now, the fundraisers, you know, they're professional and they'll do a good job, but they're going to take about 20% of whatever you raise. And if you think in $1 million or $2 million, this fraternity will never, ever do that. If you're talking 500,000 or 600,000 or 700,000, yeah, I think you can do that. You got about, and the fraternity will tell you, the fundraiser, they'll tell you that of 1,000 people, you're going to have about 10 or maybe as many as 15 that will throw the big money in, and everything else would be 100, 200, 500 bucks. It takes a lot of those to come up with $500,000. So I'm just throwing that out. I've been there. I've been through this with Beta Alpha for off and on for 50 years. This is a tough row. And some of us have invested a hell of a lot of money. And it was not a pleasure. It was hard work and it was my money. So good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I think where that leaves us is there is another property for sale that is, and it's a Sigma Kappa house. And I'll just throw this out to kind of get a temperature of the room. It has 12 bedrooms, very large kitchen, 4 or 5 bathrooms. And it is owned by the same real estate company as the folks that own the Delta Zeta house. It's not ideal in terms of rooms. If the group is interested in me pursuing it to understand where we can go with it, I will. If you tell me to drop it, I drop it.
Tom, is there room to build onto it if a person wanted to build onto it, or is it an old place? Does it need a lot of rehabilitation? Is it relatively new or what?
I just got wind of this today, Ron, and I will send some information about it tomorrow after the call. I saw pictures of it,
Yeah,
and I don't know a lot about it.
I've seen it. I've driven past it. If it's the one I'm thinking of, I think it is an older house, but I may be mistaken.
What's the
I
address?
want to address what, Don? Don, go
What's the
ahead.
address?
Let me get that for you. If you guys want to chat for a minute, I'll find it for you.
I want to talk a little bit about what Chuck was saying. This Chuck and Rich Denhart are not the only ones that put money into Route 51 and then into recovering from Route 51, good, bad, and different or otherwise. That's history, and hopefully as a lesson learned. We've talked for years about money. You can't buy squat without money. We've talked about trying to have fundraisers, and we get the same story. Well, nobody's going to put any money in if you don't have anything. And we've talked about the fund that is contained within National AGR, and many of the AGR chapters put money into that fund, and that's how they fund either new or expansions or rehabilitation of existing houses. But we just keep coming up to the same wall. We want to do something, but we have no money. We're going to have to put some money somewhere, whether we put it in our own account or whether we put it into the Alpha Gamma Rho account with National or what. But as long as we find the best property in the world and we got no money. In my mind, and it always has been, we've got to have some kind of fundraiser. We've got to have some kind of money, or a bunch of sugar daddies, which we don't have, a bunch of sugar daddies lined up, ready to write checks. And that ain't going to happen. So, I mean, it's a cart and horse kind of a thing. Yeah, like Chuck says, professional fundraisers. Pennington is the one that I've talked with, Tom has talked with, and I know some of the others of you have talked with them in times past. That's kind of the way you do it, unless, as Chuck has suggested in last year, line up some investors. But you aren't going to line up investors if you don't have something on the horizon. So we've got neither. We have nothing on the horizon, and we have no money, no investors. So I think if we're ever serious about this, with 50 years, as Don Nepp says, we've been talking about this for 50 years, and here we are. We had maybe a pretty nice chance that, through no fault of our own, slipped out of our hands. I think that Delta Zeta House was a good opportunity, but too late. So I guess the point of this is, I don't think we're going to go anywhere till we get an established fund.
Hey, it's Jake, I've got a question. On the AGR National Fund, that, now I've heard this in the past that there's a building fund, but the building can only be used for a few things. Can that fund be used toward building a house? Not just a library or this or that or whatever?
There is a percentage there's a calculation, there's a percentage of the fund money that is used for the house. And it is, because it's a 501c3, and you all know what, I assume you all know what a 501c3 is. It's a tax exempt. You can donate tax exempt. You can't just go out and do whatever you want to with it. So yes, Jake, there is a limitation on what it can be used for, but there's a percentage each year that you can draw on that fund to either pay off debt or do things within the house that you want to do. So specifically, you cannot, if you will, put $1 million in that fund and then take $1 million out and build the house with it. So if we were ever really going to get a fund of significant amount, we would need to nail down the specifics on it. But you're right, there are limitations.
So we need our own 5013C or whatever it is.
501c3, and that's fairly difficult to get done. But yes, if we wanted to establish our own fund where our donations were legally tax exempt, we would need to establish ourselves as a 501c3.
Well, it sounds to me like that's the first thing we need to do. We talked about this several years ago, and I thought somebody started in on it, and I don't guess it got finished. But I mean, I don't want to give toward a house if it's just and I have put money in that AGR fund, and we can then find out, well, we can't use it toward building a house. We're going to use
You
it.
have put money into the scholarship fund. We have no money in the AGR housing fund.
Well, I sent them a couple of years ago about $500 to get that started again. I don't know what happened to it then.
Well, it must have gone into the scholarship fund because there's no money in the housing fund.
Okay, well, anyway, regardless.
Yeah,
we
sure.
We need to get something set up if we're ever gonna even think about it.
Hey,
You're
Jake,
absolutely right. I could not agree more.
Jake, Ron, I had a good conversation with Rick this week, and that's one of the things that we are going to get behind and restart the engine, so to speak, on that because it's sort of another means to get the money, and without it, we're not going to succeed.
I'm very, very pessimistic that I may be wrong. I'm very pessimistic that as an individual alumni association, we would ever have a snowball's chance of getting designated as a 501c3, just because of the limitations that are on it and the management factors that go into it. But far be it from me more power to Rick and the treasurer would be probably the two people most likely to try to put it together to get IRS approval. Now, that said, that's if you want it to be tax exempt. If you want to just make donations, as we have in the past, of course, the scholarship fund is a tax exempt, the AGR fund. The SIU fund is a tax exempt. So the money that you contribute to our Alpha Gamma Rho SIU fund and to our Alpha Gamma Rho fund with National, those are both 501c3s, and whatever money you contribute to those is tax exempt. And whatever money you put into a housing fund with National AGR would be a tax exempt on your tax deductions.
It would be very difficult to get significant donations without having that tax exempt status. I mean,
I totally agree with you. Totally agree.
I don't know whether it's a long shot or how much of a long shot it is, but Rick and I had a conversation, and we're going to march forward. Whether we succeed or not, I don't know, but we're going to do it.
I've got one question. It's Jake. Steve White, what about the SIU Foundation? Is there any way that we could go through it, since we'd be building a house for the SIU students? Or is that a discussion would have to be made with the SIU Foundation?
We'd have to ask them. I don't know. And of course, I can try to find out and then find out what limitations we would have on that as far as housing. I don't know whether they do that or not.
Well, I think that's something we probably need to find out. I mean, that might save us a lot of grief. They'd also reinvest it for us too.
Of course, they're going to take 6% off the top too.
That's true too.
Well, any organization that is managing funds for you is going to do that because they're investing them for you and for the growth of the fund.
Yep.
That address of that Sig Cap house is 308 West Cherry Street.
Yeah.
I'll send it out later on, the link to the Zillow account for it, and we'll go from there.
You know, one suggestion or one thing that I was thinking about, and I don't know what the status is in Illinois of community foundations, but in Indiana, we have a number of community foundations, and those community foundations are typically in every county. And those local foundations offer lots of different types of funding opportunities for groups and different types of funds. And it might be worth also exploring that to see what might be available there. I know here there would be lots of different angles to go about doing something like that, but here is not there. So I know it's just a thought, but I think that's also an option above and beyond AGR and also SIU.
I see Greg Webb just put a note on there that he's skeptical that anything in the SIU Foundation would fund something like that or have a fund for that. And I totally agree. I'm about 98% positive that that is not an opportunity. I really have trouble in my simple little mind figuring out what is so such an anathema about the AGR Foundation. I can't figure out why that is so apparently distasteful to people. The money is yours. I mean, it's not lost, and it gives you a good seed bed to grow from. Gives you a good opportunity to start. It shows that you can raise money. It makes funds available. Makes funds available every year for continuing efforts on the house. But I just don't understand why people have a problem with that. I mean, we're AGR. So what the heck is wrong with AGR?
Well, Ron, I've contributed to the foundation. I have no problem contributing to the foundation, but if we're going to build a house, and if we get 500,000 put in to that fund for the house, we're going to need 500,000. We're not going to need 100,000 and say, well, this is only can be used for this part or that part. That's my problem right there.
Well, you know, there's an easier way to solve this whole mess. And Ron and I have talked about this a couple times over the last couple of years. We could put another group together that are just in AGR, but strictly investors. They buy the house, Beta Alpha leases it, and we're done. Now, there is no tax deductible gift or anything else. It is strictly a pure investment. We can do it that way. And I bet you could come up with $500,000 because you have to be able to show a return on the investment. Now, if we have a mess like we've gone through the last few months where bills are not paid, we're in arrears to a half a dozen people, or it seems like it. That's not going to bode well. An investor's going to say, no way in hell am I going to touch that. But on the other hand, if you've got good management and a good track record, a house like the Delta Zeta or the Sig Cap, I bet you could come up with enough money in 6 months to write a check for it. And again, it is not a tax deductible, it is an investment. Now, what you could do is say, okay, Beta Alpha, you got 5 years to come up with money, cash to take out the investment people. You could enter into a contract and an agreement, and there's a dozen ways to do it, but to worry about losing money at Kansas City or I think creating a 501c3 is just nothing but a goddamn nightmare. And I think you hate yourself in the morning.
Yes, I totally agree.
But I bet you could come up with 20 alums who said, hey, you know what? We'll all put in 10 grand a piece. All right. Now we got 200,000. But the important part about it is it's 200,000 cash, and it's there right now. And you know what? You could say, well, 20 is not really enough. We'd like 30. Well, all of a sudden, I bet in a year you could come up with 300,000 cash, but it is as investors. Okay. You're not going to own that house, but you're going to have all the people that do own it are going to be beta alpha people.
Yeah.
Now, you see the change in concept there? You can still have beta alpha own it, but it's at a different level.
Well,
And you can have an agreement that says at some point, you got first right of refusal to buy it.
There's lots of ways to skin a cat, that's for sure. And I think we need to be thinking about all of those ways.
Okay.
You can make it an LLC and sell shares. You know, there's lots and lots of ways to do it, but it can still be all beta alpha people. That's where I'm trying to go with this.
well,
Chuck, sounds like you're going the right
the
direction.
fact of the matter is that,
I like that.
you know, even that house that Tom had a line on at 650,000, in my mind, it would have taken probably $1 million to do what needed to be done. We would have had to, I mean, we want a house mother in that place, so we would have had to take 2 rooms and convert them to a house mother's apartment, and to do some probably other things to it. To build a house, a new house, to get that property like that one would be $3 to $3.5 million and possibly more in Carbondale. So we're talking, that's the kind of money we're talking. We're not talking 200,000. We're not talking 300,000. That's a down payment. And I mean, this, this is a pretty tough nut.
I'll throw this out to the group just for furthering the conversation, and we're probably going to need to readdress this maybe in a committee level meeting later. But what would happen if we found 20 investors that would put down, we'll say 300,000. I'm just throwing round numbers out, and then we would continue to cash flow it out, assuming that the Delta Zeta or the SIG caps, and I'm going back to this other place, would stay there, pay us rent, and then we would hire a fundraising committee to raise the cash, and within 1 or 1.5 years have the funds to buy it outright.
Well, if you own the property outright, and as Ron said, maybe it's going to take another $250,000 to build it out like you like it, and maybe more, I don't know. But if the property was all paid for, you could get a bank loan really easy. But all your numbers really have to be right on target, you know. But if the property is serviceable, in reasonable condition, it's got to pass an evaluation. In other words, it's got to be worth the investment. And some local bank is going to make that call whether you paid too much for it or not. I don't think in Carbondale, $650,000 for a house like that, I don't think that's particularly overpriced. I wouldn't offer them full list price, but I would, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if it was paid for, and then now we need another loan, we're in the driver's seat. We're in good shape. So I think where you're going is correct. We just need enough cash to get us there.
I think if you look at our finances today compared to what we've struggled with,
We've had that Hawaiian raffle going for probably 15 years or more. And the last 3 years, we finally have met the goal of raising $10,000. We've raised $10,000 the last 3 years. So it's just a very, very small piece, but you get that going and then you take a look at the volunteer dues. And I think we've been pulling in some, $25,000 there. You add those two together, we're doing pretty good, and we are getting some support. Our PIN numbers are going higher, but I do think we're getting some more support from our alumni. So I want to address something else, and I don't want to be negative because I'm all about this. I really am. And I think the way to give you the opportunity not to lose another house like the or the Delta Chi house, whatever, is probably need to circulate a paper amongst the alumni and have them make a pledge of X amount of dollars that if an opportunity came through, the money would be there on the table, like Chuck was saying. And so I don't think there'd be a problem doing that. All you're doing is signing a commitment. But hey, we're brothers and we sign a commitment, you're going to follow through with it. But here's the problem. I got to talk about this negative just a little bit because I don't want us to lose focus on this. Why are we doing this? We're doing this for our chapter. We're doing this for building better men. We're wanting to have a place to go back to, a comfort area for all of us. But we have a chapter for the last 5 years that has struggled making their rent payment and has also caused a lot of damage to the house. And yes, things break, but no, we've damaged the house and we've caused ourselves some problems. And so we don't have a house manager today that cracks a whip and finds the people, it gets in their face and does things like that. We've got people that abuse the appliances. And so in my point that I made many years ago is I really would like to see the chapter perform and be a more, I guess, professional chapter, a more responsible chapter, a chapter that understands making a commitment to rent. You have to make the rent commitment. And Blake's doing a great job now, but what is it about Blake that we haven't had the last 5 years in somebody else? And when Chuck talks about investors coming in, he's right. The people that are investing, they want a return on their money. They're not just going to throw it out there. So until we have a core that's going to support all this and what we are doing it for, we got to get a strong chapter. Okay.
Rick, I just as a personal side to what you're bringing up, I appreciate what you said. I think we're gonna have to, in a way, invest in a facility that our active chapter can be really proud of, and that we can use as a recruiting tool to get better men. And so it's which one comes first. And I think that I've never seen a better level of management out of the active chapter in my meetings with them that I have seen recently. So I'm more bullish on this group of guys than I have been in years because I've seen it in their active meetings and I've seen it in the quality of the individuals. And that's having been down there last November, having been down there in February, and having been down there a couple weeks ago. Not perfect, but I think we've turned a corner.
So how do we get them
make
to
a comment in kind of in support of what Rick is saying? Rick, as I've met more and more people in chapters around the country, one thing that I see that we're lacking is our alums visiting the chapter. Some of these other chapters, it astounds me the amount of time that alums spend visiting at meetings, just going down there, and I applaud Tom. Anybody that is close, or if you're anywhere near Carbondale, get in to visit the chapter, and we've got almost 1,000 alums now, and I think they need to see that mature senior leadership, whatever you want to call it, but the people go back and share their experiences and wisdom with them. I don't know how to encourage that, but I wish we could. I think that would help the chapter learn and grow and become more responsible and become better men and so on.
Hey, could I throw something on here, Tom?
Yes, sir.
I would kind of take an opposite view here right now. And because I really see that the old guys, what made Little Egypt work is that we had something that we could build, and we took care of it. We were responsible for it. We managed it. And I truly wonder if being part of AGR is a problem. You know, I know there are great AGR houses out there. I don't see that it has really improved things for us because we aren't developing better men. And as a whole, and to me, the actives every year, the new group has to become leaders, and they have to be doing things. And they have, I mean, I can't believe that we're going through again with $20,000 in receivables. I mean, we have seen that shit. I saw that shit when we moved into 116 small group housing. We turned it around in 1 year. It was because I didn't give a shit whether somebody was pissed off when I ran up to them and said, get this bill paid.
Pay your bill.
Pardon?
Pay your bill.
Pay your bill. And that's what it takes. And, you know, this thing of, oh, I'm going to put my arm around you and you're just a great brother is bullshit. You know, we have a house, we're living in it, we're going to school, we're trying to learn a profession. And I don't know, I'm very disappointed to see this $20,000 payable situation. I mean, what the hell is going on?
That goes back over about 9 years. And I can't speak to each and every case, but it's definitely a problem. But most of those are people that are no longer AGR brothers.
And they shouldn't have been pledged. I mean, the whole trouble that we had back when we left 116 small group housing is that they had a shit pledging program. They were pledging all kinds of riffraff. A lot of them eventually were kicked out, but we ended up with a bunch of actives that couldn't carry their weight. They couldn't keep the ball going. And every year with every pledge class, one goes through that. And so what's going on with the AGRs? Is the pledge program not teaching people to be responsible? I don't know what the hell's going on, but something needs to change.
Thank you. I think that maybe the next steps here would be a group of folks to get together in kind of a round table to kind of flesh out some concrete proposals on raising some funds. I like your idea, Chuck, of the investors. I don't want to keep this meeting going all night, all long, but I think if we could get a core group of people that are willing to put up some significant dollars, 20,000 as investors, we might be able to move forward. But we will have to have a goal towards raising that money. We'll have to have an end game for it. Is that okay with everybody? I don't want anybody to feel like I'm shutting them off. but I also want to keep this meeting moving along as quickly as possible.
Hey, well, Tom, let me just say a couple things. First of all, if we could find some central location, and believe it or not, and I'm not picking on Steve Wyatt, but Effingham seems to be a pretty central location for a lot of us. If we could get our heads together and have a Saturday meeting or a Saturday night meeting or something and put this together and structure it, I think you're onto something there. The other thing that I want to mention right away before I forget it, last month, if my memory serves me correctly, one of our brothers on this call tonight turned 80. Can you believe it? Hey, Nap, you still there?
I turned 80. So I have to just yell at people now.
You're just an old fart.
Well, well, how old are you?
Well, I'm not nearly as old as you. I'm like 3 months younger.
Okay.
Well, I've got you all beat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
old man.
Hey, Tom,
Yeah.
one thing I'd like for Rick, and if Greg's going to be at the Saluki Ball this weekend, if you could corner the chancellor and get a clear reading on the status and the direction of the university. Because it's all well and good for us to make all these plans, but if we don't have a stable university or a stable ag school, we don't have a population of kids to draw from. And to me, that's one of the issues right now is until SIU gets its act together, it's difficult getting investors to throw in $500,000 on a maybe. So I would like them to kind of corner the university and look at the bigger picture going, let's make sure the college is stable also.
I think Greg
Yeah,
ought to address
DJ,
that.
I think that's a wonderful idea. I think that's good. And, that comes back to my investor thing, if Beta Alpha has a problem, then the investors own the building. That gives us just a little bit of insulation. I'm just thinking out loud here, so I'll quit.
Greg, would you like quickly comment on that if you're available? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Please do so.
I would say, and I just typed it briefly here, I am bullish on President Mahoney and Chancellor Lane. I was a little skittish about whether they were long-termers for us, but I'm getting a growing confidence that they're in it for the longer haul. And I do think they're putting a plan together. I think the Imagine 2030 program that SIU is putting forward to think about where we'll be here in the next half a decade is the right kind of thinking. We hit a really bad spot for too many years and didn't address it fast enough. But I do, to DJ's point, there was an instability of that university and you could feel it, but I don't feel that way anymore.
Hey, Greg, what's the, talk about the capital campaign a little bit. That'll knock the socks off you.
Yeah, so some of you will know that the Forever SIU program started, I believe in 2018, Rick, with a goal of 75 million raised over about a 3-year program. The foundation CEO now, Matt Kupek, was hired in that period. And Jim Salvo, who some of you may have known, left the university. And Matt has made a dynamic shift in the ability to raise money. So that number got changed from not 75, but to 150 million. And then in 22, that 250 became $500 million raised by 24. And we're just under 300 million right now. So there's a dynamism here. There's a dynamism that's occurring, and you know, I think, you know, I was listening to some of you talking about our own alumni in Beta Alpha chapter. Whether we want to know it or not, some of our brothers need some attention. And I think I paint a broad stroke or a broad brush even on alumni of SIU. You got to be a friend before you start thinking about being a donor. And I think we're beginning to understand that art, and it makes a difference in people's attitude about contributing money. So I got a little long-winded here, but I have become bullish on where SIU is going to go, and they've got good management. We don't have 27 interim this or that. We've got real people with real jobs, and I think there's a stability now that should give all of us confidence that while we may never get to the status of SIU's student population when we were all kids, I don't think 20 or 25,000 students is in SIU's calculus anymore. But we could very easily be a mid-teens kind of a university, 15, 18,000, and have quality programs. So just a moment on the College of Agriculture or Life, Physical and Agricultural Life and Physical Sciences. Dean Brevik is an okay placement. What I like about Dean Brevik is he shows up. I don't think he's got the dynamic leadership that we were looking for, but he is doing the job. And so I think you should have a confidence that you've at least got a leader in that college that shows up to events. People know more now that SIU is on the scene. So, and I get around in a lot of places in the state, and I think you've talked about Susan Graham earlier. I mean, she's our development officer now for the college. We're in just a way better position than we were a handful of years ago.
Greg, that's Jake. I just like to add to something you said here in the Alumni Association, the foundation raising money. I think, as you all know, one thing is there's about 3 or 4 things that have hurt SIU, and that's the surrounding states. SEMO, Murray, Evansville, Southern Indiana, they're in there hammering all the time. All you got to do is turn on the local TV and they're running ads. They have pulled away in the past few years several of our top students. But with the chancellor's, one thing that has happened, the chancellor's scholarships are really making a big impact here in Southern Illinois to keep local students. What this is a full ride scholarship, $104,000 for 4 years. And I know of one instance where a student from Marion, Illinois, his parents, was getting ready to go to the University of Illinois, and the chancellor walks into Marion High School and names about 3 students that are getting these chancellor awards. He went personally, and he went to high schools throughout Southern Illinois, not just to Marion, Carterville, Heron, wherever, Carbondale, and then the surrounding towns out. But this individual is going to the University of Illinois, and his mother said, "Hey, you got $104,000. You're not going to the University of Illinois. You're going to SIU. You're following the money." So I think we're seeing more of that. In fact, last year, for Johnny Logan College, I went in and presented our scholarships at Carterville, small town here. SIU at the honors night last year passed out $480,000 in scholarships just to Carterville High School. So just to add to that a little bit, that's kind of the impact that the foundation is making. And like you said, people got to have confidence in that. And I think, how about the giving? The day of giving, did you know what that total? I saw that in the paper. It was about $3 or $4 million. Anybody?
Yeah,
know?
that's right. Yeah, it was just under 4, I think, Jake.
It grows about $1 million or so every year. I know the first. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to what Jake said. A month or so ago, I was listening to RFD Illinois on the local radio station, they were interviewing the state FFA vice president. And they were asking him what he was going to do after he got done with his term. And he said, well, I'm from Cesar Valera High School. I'm going to go to Rand Lake College for my second year. And then I'm going to SIU Carbondale. So we're going to have the state FFA vice president coming down here a year from now. I don't know if there's any chance that we could get him to be an AGR or not. I think we're missing out on a lot of those good students that are coming down here. So that's just something
You
I
have
heard.
that exactly right. Jim Miller, you have,
The kid's name is Derek Sample.
yeah. So we have had, there are 5 major officers for the state FFA, and SIU has gotten the majority of those officers the last 5 years. Now, I would grant you that several of them are female, but we are not connecting on the male students that are FFA officers, and they are already proven leaders, and yet we're
Right.
not connecting with them. We've got the FFA president from last year, who's from Wayne City, Illinois, and I've encouraged our brothers to recruit Adam, and we're not connecting with him, and he's the kind of member that we need.
Right. I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah.
And Tom, when you're ready, I'll put something on regarding summer meeting, and then I've got actually a phone call regarding summer meeting coming up tonight.
Okay, so you'll send something out, is what you're saying, Jim?
Well, I'll talk about a little bit about it now.
All right,
but then
be
we're gonna
brief.
have the 3 of us are going to talk about it as soon as this meeting's over. Okay, the summer meeting is the last weekend in July at Springfield. We've secured the Crown Plaza as far as our hotel, and Friday night, that's still up in the air as far as Friday night. Probably whoever's coming up then, we'll try to get, whoever wants to get together, we'll have kind of an informal meeting, maybe at a bar like we did in Peoria last year. On Saturday, we are going to go to Lincoln Land Community College Ag Department, and they've got some simulators, combine sprayer simulators, drones and stuff like that. Spend a little time there, and then we're going to go to the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Museum mid-morning, probably from 10 to about 12. And then we've secured the Dannenberger Winery in New Berlin for our luncheon. And I want to let you know that we've also secured Twyford Barbecue. Brother Randy Twyford is going to be our caterer for the noon meal. And he's also, him and Dave Niepert are the other 2 on the committee regarding the summer meeting. So he's very pleased to be able to be part of it. And then we'll have a banquet that evening at the Crown Plaza. And then that night we'll also have a hospitality room that we have until midnight on the 14th floor there. So then Dave's got everything pretty well lined up. He's going to put out something before long. You'll be able to call and be able to go online and register your rooms and stuff. So.
Okay. Thank you very, very much, Jim and Dave, who's not on the call, but for all the hard work. There's been hours and hours of support. I appreciate it. Everybody appreciates it. Thank you. If there's nothing else, I have a few bullet points I'd like to get out in front of everybody quickly, and then we're going to try to adjourn here very shortly. As I said, I have Joe Bockold as the assistant treasurer. He's going to focus in on Omega Phi. Taj Davis has asked me for a little more transparency and accountability, and we're going to put Joe as having insight into the account in Petersburg State Bank. And then as we go forward, Joe is going to help Jim on some of the methodology and accounting work for the treasurer's role. Next one, I have asked Josh Gavey, who is a former advisor to the chapter, to work with Mike Bockold. And so we're going to, in time here, have 2 advisors. We'll have Josh, who lives in Marion, be able to assist with a couple meetings during the month, and we'll have Mike cover the other 2. I want to build a little bit of a more of an alliance between the active chapter and the alumni board and by having an advisor within the confines should help quite a bit. I don't know, do I need a motion from the board to our approval to take past debtors to collections, or can we just do that with a white paper ballot? I want to do things right, but I want to make sure that I have permission.
Well, it's not gonna cost us anything, is it?
No, they'll take between 5 and probably 10% of the gross amount.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Fine, we'll do it. Al Osterlin is going to handle the SIU scholarship, taking that over from Steve Wyatt. I've had discussions with Top Tier on house conditions and needed repairs. And they have a list, and they were supposed to go by there this week and fix a number of things. There's a little bit of confusion on some things, but hopefully we've started a conversation. Last but not least, I have had some individual sidebars with Greg Webb, Dr. Apgar, soon to have one with Susan Graham in the School of Ag. I consider these kind of like stakeholders that we can be working with. If anybody has any ideas or anybody else that you think would be worthwhile for me to meet with and get on board with our goals and initiatives, I'm open. And I guess in closing, I want to speak very quickly to this Pennington fundraising. It's all about goal setting, doing a study, and they're taking about 16% of what they raise. And I believe whatever we do, we're not going to be successful unless we have a professional fundraising organization.
Totally agree.
I went through those very quickly, but I would like, if you guys are interested in me pursuing a little more information on the Sigma Kappa House, I will send more information out this week or early next week.
I've got one problem with that is the size. When you look at only 12 rooms, and if we want a house mother, you've got to make room for that. That only leaves, 10 or 12 rooms at most. That's the one thing about the DZ house that we're looking at 20 rooms. So that's just my concern there.
Steve, I agree with you, and it's a bitter disappointment to lose the Delta Zeta house. I don't want it to settle, but I also somehow want to see a path forward of results and not be talking about this in 5 years. And so I don't know the methodology. I don't have all the financial acumen that some of my colleagues here on the call do, but I'm going to see if we can't coordinate a plan that is thoughtful, responsible, and gets us where we need to be.
Tom, in that same line, why it's only 2,500 square feet. So it's really not large enough to do anything with. So.
Okay, DJ, thank you. That settles it before we settle it.
Yeah.
Tom, real quick too. I mean, I want to throw it out there. I don't know how much a lot of you know about the Carbondale area, but historically Cherry Street is not a good place to be anyway. That's where a lot of drug problems are, a lot of gang problems are. So it is something that has been off the list for me simply because of where it's at. I know it's not far from where we're at now, but I think it's actually a little bit worse of a neighborhood than where we currently are. So
I tend to agree. Because
Okay.
I grew up in Carbondale. I mean, been around there 80 years, so plus, and I'd never dreamed that College Street, what's happened to it. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I've talked to the state's attorney, and it's not all, it's just, it's a mess.
I appreciate those comments. I'll drop that, and I will keep my nose on the ground on other opportunities. Eric, don't want to put you on the spot, but I will. And that is at the beginning of our call, we had everybody introduce ourselves to the rest of the folks in the room. And I'd like you to just say what year you pledged, what your major was, where's your hometown? Where you living at now?
So Eric Kunzman, I live in Griggsville, Illinois, so 2 hours north of St. Louis. Pledged in 92, was in the House at 116 for all 4 years. And it's an ag business major.
Thank you.
And now I work at Nutrien, for anybody who knows the ag retail business, and I lead the seed business across North America.
Sounds good. Is there
So
anybody?
Tom, one other thing, there was some discussion earlier about putting a group together to kind of put a plan together. Personally, I wonder how much time it's worth finding at the actual house versus putting the plan together of where we're going to get this seed money, if we're going to do the investor piece, which I think is a neat approach. Is that the right way to go to figure out what we want to do and have that in place? So that when the Delta Zeta house comes up and it's a quicker conversation, we already have the money and we already have the plan, and it's just here we go.
I kind of like what you're saying, because if we'd had the money, we could have moved aggressively on the Delta Zeta house and it would have been a non-issue. So I look at the calendar. I'm going to reach out to a few of you. But frankly, one of the best times I think we could have for a good sit down, which and is good for the farmers in the group, would be summer meeting, but maybe sooner.
Well, whatever it is, I just think that's the right approach to try to go down, because if we don't, we're going to find a house and we're going to be back in the same boat of trying to find the seed money to get a down payment, and somebody's going to have to guarantee the loan, and I think we're going to struggle.
Okay. All right. Your point's well taken and I appreciate it. Anybody else have anything for the good of the order?
Tom, I have one thing. Rick, go ahead.
Tom, do we have another year on our house lease or?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to get those guys out of that house ASAP with a rental or whatever. You talked about attracting and quality and good living and stuff. That's got to be a focus of that group you're going to put together.
Thank you. I agree. Who else was wanting for the good of the order?
Tom, that's DJ.
Yes, DJ.
To go into something Greg brought up about the investors. It's about relationships. As board members, we need to pick up the phone, start texting our brothers, start getting people more involved. Without that, I'm afraid our fundraising efforts could fall flat, because you have to cultivate these relationships. The reason I'm here tonight is because my friend Rick Story called me. I trust Rick, and that's why I'm here. We need to develop those relationships again, and we've kind of stepped away from some of those things that we need to get back to. So there's my 2 cents for the evening.
Thank you, DJ. Is there a motion to close out? To adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, everybody. There'll be some further discussions about a meeting of core constituency, and we will be discussing. Thank you and have a good evening, everybody.
Night all.
Thanks.
Take
Night,
care,
everybody.
everyone.